it's been a second, but I have a quick craft that's perfect for the holiday season. When last we met, I was very busy with midterms and then Halloween, and now I'm still in recovery mode, and now it's already finals? How did this happen? I don't know. But I hope that today's quick craft is a fun little scrap buster for you, and also a cool little project that I think is actually really useful for a lot of things. The TLDR of today's craft is I used a bunch of freehanded templates that I have put on my website that are free if you want to use them, but you can kind of just use them as a general idea to make a bunch of leaves and some pumpkins to make a table runner for Gourdmas. I actually started working on this around Halloween because I wanted the little pumpkins to look like a little pumpkin patch on top of the runner, because Gourdmas is all about, you know, gourds and fun Halloween fall things. What is Gourdmas? Well, Thanksgiving is problematic as and that's just not a holiday that I've ever felt really keenly excited about, but I do really like fall, and I really do like Halloween, and I think that instead of us celebrating a very problematic, truly unacceptable holiday, if you watched my Victorian magazine video, it actually goes into detail about all of the propaganda around the creation of Thanksgiving, which was a totally made up holiday that only certain people in the country in New England celebrated, was not nationwide. And besides being problematic and like creating a fake nostalgia for a very fake whatever of what America should think of the founding of America, even at the time it was problematic because Thanksgiving itself was used as a time to bring the country together after the Civil War. It just like reeks of the whole can't we talk about something more pleasant, aka can we not hold anyone accountable bullshit. Knowing that Thanksgiving is not a holiday I've ever really liked the ideas around, but also knowing that like I really do love Halloween, I really do love fall, and I really want to extend the celebration of the things around Halloween and fall, I fully embraced Gourdmas, which is the holiday that my lovely DM for a game created. So a couple years back, my DM made up a holiday for us to celebrate in game in our fun little like fantasy Regency world-ish thing, and it was Gourdmas. And it was kind of like all the things that are great about like fall festivals and harvest festivals into one. And ever since then I've been like, let's just call it Gourdmas, because let's be real, we don't actually want to celebrate Thanksgiving anymore. And I want to extend the kind of Halloween vibes. So that being said, here's a fun little Gourdmas craft that you can use as a table runner. You can use, I don't know, for a little decoration around the house. Maybe little pumpkins removable so you can put them anywhere. You could even, like, you know, if you make a keyleth, make your own little like leaf scarf out of everything. So you have a little leaf thing. I say just have fun with it. I use it as a table runner for our little Gourdmas lunch with the family. Here are going to be the materials you'll need. I would say any kind of scrap felt works really great and easy for this, but you can also use scrap fabric. I just used whatever things I had, and scrap felt seemed like a really good weight of a thing to use. You can also like check out the remnants bin at Joann Fabric because everyone's using fleece right now. You need all your sewing supplies. If you want to use stuffing, definitely prep cabbage for it, like the remnants of your sewing stuff. I didn't prep cabbage for recording the video today. I just had polyfill handy, so I use that. But like, yeah, if you're making this, you should probably use your cabbage to stuff it if you have leftover little scraps of fabric, because that's a little bit more sustainable. I just didn't have that prepped for video recording today. I'd say you also need lots of thread and also some patience, because, you know, it's probably going to take you a second to cut out all the leaves that you want, but I also think that, like, be patient with yourself and give yourself room for creativity, because I pretty much just cut, like, little abstract-y shapes and then cut little, like, leaves into them. You can use embroidery thread to kind of create veins and other things. I say just have fun with it and enjoy. So you can see here I'm just taking a scrap of just felt that I have, and what I'm going to do is just cut into the space that I have and the shape that I have, and honestly it's just freestyling it, like using the kind of natural scrappy bits to make the leaf shape. You can Google or Pinterest a bunch of leaf shapes and botanical things, and I think that's really helpful. And then I added little hashes, which will help this like curve, cut some little pieces out to make it look creative, a little bit more natural. Like leaves aren't really, if you think about it, 100% uniform. Like there's going to be little variation, especially in the fall as things age. I like to fold mine to at least get them to be the general same look on both sides because I'm not great eyeballing both sides, I guess, if that makes sense. And then you can cut a little stem into some of these if you want at the bottom. Just a little divot there. Sometimes that little tip's a little hard to get. And you can curve round edges, straighten things up. And you can be like, okay, maybe this doesn't look quite right yet. Let me add some little cuts to it because it works really well for felt to do that. And then if you're using a stencil, I usually do the same kind of idea, honestly, for the stencil, which is I just create a half stencil and then fold it so that I have the full stencil be the same shape. And then this is just like one size. So you can do any size you want. You can kind of eyeball it and make it bigger or smaller, whatever you need to do. But I'm like, okay, this is about the size of this little piece of scrap. So what I'm going to do is just kind of cut a little closer to the pattern, and then when I'm done I will cut other little demarcations in there to give it a little bit of body. But you can see there there's not quite enough at the bottom, so what I'm going to do is just take that away and just freehand the stem and that bottom curve. So again, just have fun with it. Use what you have. This is 100% a scrap project. You can make that pointy if you want. If you mess up on a fold, because sometimes folds it's a little hard to get that specific tip in. But yeah, leaves, I think they're pretty easy if you just freehand it, don't overthink it. And then this is just showing you how I eyeballed taking a small pattern I made and enlarging it. This is literally what I do for crafty projects. Obviously for pattern drafting clothes and stuff, I would do it a little bit differently and more precisely. But yeah, I'm just like, I have scrap pattern paper and it seems a great size for a leaf. So I have it on top of the fabric that I'm planning to use, the little fabric scrap, so I know exactly how big to make it. And then I just eyeball it. And maybe you can see I messed up, but it's fine. It's just a stencil. It doesn't have to be perfect. Then I'm getting my paper scissors out to cut it. And I feel like in the cutting process too for stencils, it's where you can kind of, if you made multiple marks, you can be like, okay, I'm following this mark, not the other ones. But yeah, I think just have fun with it, freehand it. If you don't have paper to make stencils with, that's fine. Make do with what you have, eyeball it. Honestly, use cardboard from food containers, grocery stuff. If you want to make something that'll be a good stencil that'll last a second, because this paper isn't going to last forever, right? Manila folders, mailers, if you got a ton of political mailers like I did in November, those are all kind of good sturdy cardstock for pattern. There you go. Ta-da! Pattern is made, and it's made exactly to the length of that scrap too. So yeah, that's how I do it. You can pin it in if you want to. You can see, I think the other one I did not pin it on. I just kind of held it. You don't have to be that chaotic with it, but you just pin it the best you can and then cut around it, and voila, you have a leaf. And of course, you can embroider things. You can use fabric paint. You can use, other fabric if you want to just add layers to it. Kind of reverse applique or applique things if you want. I think this is just a really cool basic, here are some leaves out of some scraps. I made a thing. If you don't want to do a table runner, again, you could use kind of the same ideas to make cool fall bunting or garlands, I guess, around the house. You could use it to decorate, I don't know, a wreath potentially. And again, Keyleth, her cape and all that, you could make a fun little cozy cape, I guess, a machine washable leaf cape. And again, I just did this on a fold so that I could instantly unpin and have a leaf, which is pretty nice. Look at that. Now, this is for my little pumpkins. I believe the pattern for this should be on my website by now, but if it's not, it will be soon. It's a little different than the square quilting pumpkin I did last season. I'm using this little pointed oval shape, and you just cut as much as you need. And you can see here, this is my pumpkin of leaves. But I cut up a bunch of this just sitting and watching Halloween movies and getting ready for making this. So this is kind of like a cool pastime that you can just like slowly build up a ton of different shapes and sizes and be ready for. Those bigger ones are kind of like pumpkin-ish seed or leaves, sorry. And yeah, you can see I just did different treatments to some of these. As I put them on, I will also be sewing some embroidery thread on these and making some three-dimensional aspects of them. So fast forward to many days in the future, and I just have all my sewing supplies. I have the little scrap pieces ready to put together. So I'm starting with the pumpkin pieces, and there's no really right or wrong side for felt, really. Like, there's a kind of fluffier side. If you don't mind it, that's fine. But I'm just going to start sewing these little leaf shapes together. They're not leaves. They're just going to be the size of a pumpkin. So because they're curved sides, eventually when you put enough of them together, it's going to make a little curvy pumpkin. And as I'm sewing, I'm going to gather a little bit, if that makes sense. So I'm going to sew and then tug. Sew a running stitch and give it a little tug. So I'm pulling it in because it will make a basic sphere. But if you want it to look more pumpkin-like and kind of have like the little ridges and uneven sides, but also be a little plump, like a little short and round, you'll want to be gathering it as you go. And then I'm just gonna put my needle under that last stitch, loop it around and make a knot, and then go on to the next piece. So you just keep sewing along, and there's again like no right or wrong way to do this, if that makes sense. Like, if you want the seams to show on the outside, you totally can. If you want to do like cool blanket stitches or other stitches so that like those show, you can do that too. I am just doing a basic running stitch, and again I'm just kind of giving it a little tug after each stitch to gather it down just a little bit, to give it a little bit of a body and texture, because I think it looks kind of cute. But it's up to you if you want to do that. So you can see it's already starting to make a curve, and I've used, I think, 6 pieces for this one. You can use 5 or 6 pieces. They all work. And then I'm at my last one. So what I'm going to do is have it inside out, and unless of course you're doing visible stitches, and I'm just going to, it's hard to see here, but I'm sewing 2 stitches in the bottom to just close that bottom up. So I'm just sewing across, and then I will be sewing down the curved side of these 2 last pieces and doing the same kind of sew and tug, except for the last little bit, because I need the little bit to be open so that I can, 1, turn the pumpkin inside out, and then 2, so that I can put stuffing in there so that I can actually plump it up and make it look like a little pumpkin. And when it comes to like leaving the space to turn something inside out, I feel like everybody knows their comfort level and everyone has a better idea of like what you can manage. I know in my early days of sewing, I wouldn't leave enough room, so it was a struggle to get the thing out, and I'd break stitches and have to restitch stuff. So I will say, like, leave probably like at least 2 inches for the template that I gave, but you can leave more. You can do some creative stitches on the outside, whatever's comfortable for you, just so that it works out okay. And then you're going to take your polyfill or your cabbage, and you are just going to stuff it in. You don't really need a ton, because like the kind of gathering I feel like gives it a lot of body, so it doesn't need to be like pushed to like the brim or to bursting. I think it works out pretty okay with just a little handful. And then I'm going to take rest of my thread, and I'm going to just do a little stitch that will bring this together. And then I will be sewing up the slit that I used to put it inside out, and then sewing again across the sides to close up the gap on the top where they all meet. And since like this is just going to be covered with leaves, the two openings, the top and the bottom, I'm not worried about stuffing coming out. But if you are worried, you can do a lot more stitches than I did. Okay, so you have your little pumpkins, and so let's make a patch for them. You just move all your stuff aside, and then you take your leaves, and I like to just, in some of them, add texture and depth by sewing a kind of ridge down the middle. So that's what you're going to see me doing now. I just do a running stitch on the back. I don't care that it's a contrasting color. I think that's fine. But I'd say whatever kind of leaves that you're inspired by, keep those photos handy some way. Either favorite them, put them on Pinterest, save them to your phone in an album, whatever you need to do so that you just have a nice little place to reference them so that you can add a little bit more realism to them as you're making your runner or whatever it is you're doing. I think that it adds a little bit of depth. It's fun. It also gives it some texture that I think is fun on a table. So yeah, you can see it's basic, but now it looks a little bit more like a leaf in my opinion. And then the way that I attached these was kind of had them facing away from each other. So like the stems would be face opposite sides, if that makes sense. I don't know, but I would sew the big leaves to the big leaves as a kind of basis and just do a really basic like couple of little stitches in a little square and tie that off and then sew some stuff over it to kind of cover it. But the big leaves are kind of the base. You can see here, yeah, pop a pumpkin on it. So I put a little patch of little smaller leaves that I made on top of that. And then I sewed some leaves to the pumpkin, and it works out. So when you're all done, you'll have a big chain of leaves, as big as you want it to be. And because I don't have them like interfaced or anything, they do get like a little spun around each other. So just take your time and flip them over to wherever you wanted your quote top to be. I think these could also make like a fun little garland to just put like around places in the house or like hang in doorways. But yeah, you can see it's kind of like they're all kind of facing up, quote unquote, and there's a bunch of layers of them. And then I added like the little piece I just made for you, and now I can add pumpkins, so it becomes a little pumpkin patch. And I kind of liked having the pumpkins floating, specifically because they do stick out a lot, and if you're putting food on a table on top of it, with a bunch of platters and bowls and stuff, I like the malleability of being able to move the pumpkins to be in very specific places to not interrupt the placement of silverware. So I hope this has been a fun little craft. If you do make anything with all these templates, I'd love to see it. I felt like this was a perfect little Brambly Hedge fall craft because it incorporated using scraps, using materials I already had, and also it felt like a very like nature-filled, lush table setting to be enjoying fall harvest foods with. That's a sentence. Patrons, I want to say thank you so much for all your support this year, especially this semester, as I've been very busy with many presentations and many things for school and work, but you rock. If you'd like to join my Patreon, you get special access to my Discord server that is called the Jane Austen Avocado Toast Society, where I share early previews and early access to my videos and content. And also all of the money goes toward, you know, paying for my supplies for fashion school. So that's really, really helpful. Thank you so much for joining me, and don't forget to make it so.